What is up, hostages? I am in Belgium. I'm in Bruges, to be exact, the medieval city. And you know how hard it is to find somebody in comics that is actually from Belgium? I didn't want to talk about Tintin, so today we're going to talk about Ulysses Klaw, who is actually, I believe, from the Netherlands, but he holds citizenship in Belgium. That's a loophole that I'm going to exploit.
And of course, he's South African in the MCU.
And then I saw a documentary, it was terrifying.
But honestly, where he's from doesn't come up at all in his early origin, so let's dive right in. First appearing in Fantastic Four number 53, created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. That in itself makes Klaw part of Marvel Comics royalty. The Fantastic Four are in Wakanda when a big red elephant and a big red gorilla creature start attacking, so Black Panther decides to tell a story. It's about a greedy ivory scalper named Klaue, who dubbed himself the Master of Sound. He found his way into Wakanda and discovered its vibranium, something he theorized existed, and it was just the metal he needed to finish his weapons. The king of Wakanda, T'Chaka, refused and found himself on the wrong end of some bullets. Klaw and his men tore through Wakanda, leaving chaos in their wake, until young T'Challa used Klaw's own sound gun against him, destroying Klaw's right hand.
But now years later, Klaw has perfected his weapon and he's coming back for revenge.
And he's now capable of turning sound into solid living creatures. Hence the big red gorilla and the elephant.
Speaking of sounds, these sidewalk good sounds. I'm going to dub over a lot of this.
Black Panther suspects the self-proclaimed Master of Sound and knows there's only one place in Wakanda where Klaw could be hiding his equipment. Finally, T'Challa will have revenge against his father's killer. And it is indeed Klaw, now with a force glove capable of turning sound into a blast of energy. But even with that, Klaw is easily defeated, and the Black Panther overloads the systems, causing a massive explosion to avenge his father. Though, through some cruel twist of fate, both Klaw and his sound converter are intact. So Klaw climbs inside his creation to perform the one experiment he dare not take.
And should he survive, he will emerge with far more power than any mortal man has ever had before. So holy crap, does Klaw ever have a badass origin? Like, you never questioned that he is the villain. Honestly, the sound stuff and the living creatures made of sound, that's a bit of a silly premise, but that is a technology that would continue on in the Marvel Universe. In fact, Songbird's sonic harness is actually made from repurposed Klaw technology. So I'm actually eager to keep going, so let's jump ahead 3 months to Fantastic Four number 56, also by Lee and Kirby.
Klaw is indeed back, and he is far more powerful as he is no longer a living being, but he is a form of pure sonic life. Living sound taking human form.
And how does one hurt a sound?
Right away, he traps Reed and Ben behind a solid wall of subsonic sound.
So I'm going to simplify it for all of us. He's basically Green Lantern, but sound. He can turn sound into solid anything he wants.
After that, he plans to trap Sue as well and use her to call the Black Panther, for Klaw is the sworn enemy of the Black Panther. And since T'Challa is friends with the Fantastic Four,
they are also Klaw's enemies.
The Thing manages to escape and Klaw goes toe-to-toe with him and manages to bring the strong man down to his knees. But unfortunately for Klaw, the Black Panther managed to send Reed some vibranium gauntlets.
Now, vibranium is a wonderful metal in the Marvel Universe, and it can actually absorb sonic frequencies. So Klaw gets punched out. Kind of makes me wonder why he goes on to become like the arch enemy of Black Panther. Black Panther is known for having vibranium all the time. That's kind of like if Superman fought Kryptonite Man all the time. And yes, I know there is a Kryptonite Man. I was just making an example.
Next up, Klaw joins the Masters of Evil in Avengers number 54 and 55, and that's a big deal. Back then, the Masters of Evil were essentially the Avengers but for bad guys. Klaw had been recruited by the Crimson Cowl alongside Whirlwind, the Melter, Radioactive Man, and the Black Knight. I see how this could look like they aren't a big deal. Anyway, the Black Knight is actually a good guy, so Klaw knocks him off of his flying horse Aragorn with a blast of noiseless sound, and the Masters effectively beat him up. But Klaw can still do solo work. After declaring himself the Black Panther's greatest foe, Klaw single-handedly defeats Wasp by slamming a door shut, and then she flew into it. Klaw doesn't really care about the rest of the Avengers, he just wants revenge on the Black Panther, who was an Avenger at the time. While Klaw does work very well with the Masters, he is arrogant about how much better than them he is. But at the same time, he's very subservient to the Crimson Cowl. Also, he gets beat up by Hank Pym Goliath, and then, this is kind of weird, but the Cowl scolds Klaw and calls him a dolt.
I'm always a sucker for a good calling of a dolt.
This, of course, hurts Klaw's feelings, and he blasts the Cowl with intent to destroy, but nothing happens. And then when the Crimson Cowl turns it around and threatens Klaw with his poison gun, Klaw folds and backs down so hard, like he's not an actual tough guy. Also, why would he be worried about poison gas? Does sound have to breathe? Anyway, the Crimson Cowl was actually Ultron, and the Masters of Evil got defeated, as would be expected. Black Panther took Klaw out with a kick to the jaw. So much for all his boasting of his power. I mean, not that a good kick to the jaw wouldn't knock me out, but I don't brag about being very powerful. He would next appear again in Avengers number 83, where Klaue is now in charge of the Masters of Evil. Well, he says he's in charge because he broke them all out of prison. They're at a parade to kidnap some dude, and when they see the Avengers in the same parade, their master plan is to jump on the float behind the Avengers, and then they're surprised when they actually get caught by them.
Black Widow kicks out Klaue this time.
In Fantastic Four number 119, we see Klaue once again, and finally he's in an issue that doesn't feature the Black Panther. This one has the Black Leopard, which was still T'Challa, but he very briefly changed his name for political reasons. Anyway, the Thing and the Human Torch are in South Africa to help T'Challa. It's a whole racism thing. Klaue's there and he's blasting them with his sonic cannon. That seems to be all he does anymore, so a bit of a de-evolution. He shows up near the end and gets beat up. Now, Avengers number 126 has Klaue team up with Solar, and I spoke too soon on the sonic constructs because they're actually back. We also get some new character motivation. Because he was treated so badly during his time in South African prison, he decides that he needs more political power like the Submariner or Dr. Doom. So Klaue is now aiming to become the dictator of Wakanda. Not only that, but he isn't actually even there, and he's sent himself as a sonic projection.
Our boy leveled up.
He's also brought back his red living sound creatures, and he can create a disguise for himself out of sound, but Black Panther still knocks him out with a good punch.
Every time he does this, they don't mention vibranium, but I have to assume it's there.
Klaue would actually take an extended sabbatical from the Black Panther now as he sets his sights on Ka-Zar. If you're unfamiliar with Ka-Zar, he's Lord Kevin Plunder, the ruler of the Savage Land, and if that's not ringing any bells, then he's basically Tarzan. I don't like to boil it down to such a simple comparison, but he's like Tarzan, but from the Savage Land. And in issue 14 by Doug Munch and Larry Hama, Ka-Zar and his pet saber-toothed tiger Zabu find themselves in London, where they're attacked by Klaue and another one of his sonic beasts. Ka-Zar shrugs off a full-force blast by Klaue and reveals that he is wearing a vibranium belt buckle. So Klaue runs away, but they do fight again at the Imperial War Museum, where Ka-Zar manages to get the upper hand on Klaue, but Klaue is pulled out of the action by this guy.
And what is Klaue truly after? And who is his new partner? Klaue stuck around in Ka-Zar till issue number 20, so let's dig through those and rustle up some answers.
With a new artist comes a new look, and boy did Val Meterick make some changes. First off, Klaue has more texture, and I dig it. But also, this guy now looks like this. That's very different. His name is Shauron, and he's a Shinarian. The Shinarians are an extra-dimensional race from a place called Quarrel, and they need Klaue to open a portal for their invasion squad using his sonic abilities and a mountain of vibranium that exists in the Savage Land. Klaue, in exchange, was obviously offered a leadership role on Earth once the Shinarians conquered it. Though Klaue gets a little big for his britches and acts like he's in charge, which rubs the Shinarians the wrong way. And Ka-Zar whoops Klaue and forces him to open a portal anyway, so Ka-Zar and his forces can take the fight to Quarrel. But just so you know, over there, they've got flying sharks. Ka-Zar and his crew are doing their thing, and Klaue just kind of exists. Until he realizes the Shinarians are going to lose, but then he finds his way back to Earth and keeps real positive about it. Sure, I won't be the king of Earth, but I can always fall back on my life of crime. Good thing about being a supervillain is you got options. I don't know what that accent was. And wouldn't you know it, Klaue would show up about a year later in Fantastic Four number 186, 187, and 188 by Len Wein and George Perez. And this is actually the first time I realized either of them worked on the Fantastic Four. Also, Klaue is in a shadow for the first of these 3 issues and unconscious for the third. But it seems that on his way home from that other dimension, Klaue got lost in space or whatnot and wound up in the Florida Everglades at the nexus of the universe, where he happened upon a staff that contained the essence of the Molecule Man. So they find MM a body and they team up to steal some tech from the Fantastic Four that will make his new body a permanent one. They actually wrecked the whole first family of Marvel, but didn't account for the Impossible Man being there, and he pretty handily takes them out. But then Reed bonds with the Molecule Man, and well, Klaue isn't there for that, so I didn't really read it. But Klaue comes back home to his roots and his hatred of the Black Panther as we now dive into Black Panther, issues number 14 and 15. It is 1979, and Ed Hannigan and Jerry Bingham give us Black Panther. In the midst of a larger storyline, T'Challa is swinging around a beautifully drawn New York City when he sees Klaue and begins to stalk his prey. But when he sees Klaue about to actually get mugged by a gang, he intervenes, but it's too late. Klaue gets shot, and the gang takes his sonic blaster. Panther takes his oldest and most deadly foe's lifeless body to the Avengers. Now they're thinking what I was thinking. The dude is solid sound, what's a bullet gonna do? Well, it did pass through him harmlessly, but the shockwave left Klaue in a coma, so just shoot him, I guess. Meanwhile, one of the gang members named Jackie seems to be possessed by the power of Klaue's sonic arm cannon thingy, and he goes on a rampage creating sonic animals for the Avengers to fight until he can reunite the weapon with Klaue and revive him, restoring his power, which was Klaue's plan all along, which doesn't really make any sense to me, but apparently it was about getting hit with his own sonic cannon, which he couldn't have done himself. Klaue outpunches the Vision, and Black Panther arrives with some special vibranium-infused gloves to take care of the deadly Master of Sound. Though from what I've been reading, a good smack from Cap's shield should take the guy out. But he and the Black Panther actually have a really entertaining fight that ends when the Black Panther realizes that Klaue has turned himself into a sonic bomb of nuclear proportions and turns his blaster on him, causing a feedback loop that apparently destroys Klaue. T'Challa doesn't believe he's truly gone, but knows it will be a while before he returns.
Which he does 5 months later in Marvel 2-in-1 number 57 by channel favorite Mark Grunwald and world favorite George Perez.
Klaw's former partner Solar is trying to escape from a Project Pegasus prison, and he's looking for a little help when he comes across Klaw's sonic disruptor. But no Klaue. He throws the bauble aside, but the sound from it falling is enough to draw out the Master of Sound like a genie from the lamp. Klaw's sonic being was stored in his little arm cannon thingy, and the two of them set out to escape. Of course, the Thing and Ka-Zar and Bill Foster Goliath have something to say about that, so they battle. Klaue brilliantly feigns unconsciousness, while Ka-Zar wastes his power, and Klaue stands triumphant. But before he can finish off the do-gooders, he gets trapped back into his sonic disruptor by the Aquarian.
Itty-bitty living space.
Though he does return once more in Marvel 2-in-1 Annual number 6, and something I loved about comics from this age was that they explained stuff. They could have simply had Klaue return because he just returns, no big deal. But Thing asks Klaue how he came back, and Klaue explains that after Project Pegasus was destroyed, a cleaning lady found his sonic disruptor and accidentally brought him back. So he took her out gently because he's not a total ingrate. But this time around, Klaue pulled some heist or another and resulted in the creation of a new hero, the American Eagle, who went on to team up with the Thing and Ka-Zar in the Savage Land. Klaue once again is after some vibranium, but now he's also capturing dinosaurs, which he's able to control by sending different pulses of sonic frequencies to their brains. And he can't control them, but he can make them docile or really piss them off. Either way, he lost.
Now, if you guys are anything like me, since you learned that Klaw's made of sonic sound, you're probably wondering what happens if he goes up against Dazzler. No? Just me? Okay, because Dazzler can turn sound into light energy. You know what, it happens. We're going to dig into it, alright?
So old Alison Blair is actually on a tour of Project Pegasus, and they're going to run some tests on her as well. Ka-Zar is giving her the tour when they come across Klaue, who writes Dazzler a message saying not to trust them. It's clearly a lie, but it's enough to sow the seeds of doubt, and she does begin to doubt and push back a little bit. Later on, she seeks out Klaue for some more answers, and he's about to have some tests done, so he hams it up big time to appear to be in pain, despite actually feeling nothing. Dazzler loses her cool and attacks the science guys, allowing Klaue to escape. Klaue and Ka-Zar have an enjoyable fight. It reminded me of a Green Lantern versus Yellow Lantern. Anyway, Ka-Zar goes down, and the only thing standing between Klaue and his freedom is the Disco Dazzler. She blasts him with light, but nothing happens. Klaue explains to her that attacking him with light is like trying to silence a siren with a strobe light. She asks if she can try again, and Klaue says, yeah, sure, why not? He stands there as she tries again and again to stop him with zero success. And then Klaue tells her that he will end her life painlessly by vibrating her brain into a paste before she can feel anything. Jesus. But when he blasts her, she just absorbs it. And he all of a sudden can't stop blasting her. And she absorbs it all until she absorbs Klaue as well. She is supercharged, and she uses her power to blast a hole through the solid steel and mountains to escape Project Pegasus.
And though she discharged a lot of it, she is still juiced to the max, and this draws the attention of Galactus. But we're not talking about Dazzler today. We're talking about Klaue. So when Klaue does return, as he always does, his next big arc is actually Secret War. So we're gonna end the video here because I've actually got a train to catch over to Germany. So please subscribe and, I don't know, speculate on who I'm gonna talk about when I get to Germany. Okay, bye. Stay Haussy. Hey, stay Haussy. Stay Haussy. Stay Haussy.